Hello gamers, welcome to Recollection Extreme. Please help me out with the likes, subs, and comments, and as always, all of my diagrams can be found linked below the video. After setting up standard Waymarks and Clocks, pulling Zelenia will have her first cast Thorned Catharsis, a magic damage Raidwide AoE. Shock will target one roll with large donut circles, and the other roll with small point-blank circles. After a countdown above players' heads, these AoEs will pulse rapidly, dealing massive damage to players that stand in the bad. The donuts will also pull any player struck in towards the center. While Shock resolves, Zelenia casts Alexandrian Holy, placing 4 intercardinal towers. Each set of color Waymarks should have 1 support and 1 DPS, and therefore 1 donut and 1 point-blank circle. The donuts will stand in the tower on their color, while the spreads use the remaining space. After the countdowns on your heads resolve, small circle players should move out of the pulsing AoEs, while the donut players remain in place to soak their towers. Specter of the Lost will spawn 2 tethers on random players. At the end of this cast, tethered players will be hit with Tankbuster Cleaves. As such, both tanks should move into the hitbox, and once both tanks have picked up a tether, aim the cleaves north away from the rest of the raid. Try not to move north before your co-tank also has a tether to avoid a hot potato of death situation with stealing the same tether back and forth. Escelons Fall will telegraph a series of 2 close and 2 far baits in a random order. Many players call these witch hunts due to them sharing telegraphs with the witch hunt mechanic from M4S. 3 spread purple diamonds indicate far baits, while 3 clumped pink diamonds indicate close baits. Pay attention to these telegraphs. Supports will be responsible for baiting the first and third sets, while DPS will bait the second and fourth sets. At the end of the cast bar, 4 cleaves will shoot from Zelenia at the 4 closest or farthest players depending on the telegraphs. These cleaves inflict a 5-second vulnerability, killing any players that overlap or take 2 cleaves back to back. In this example, the order is far, close, close, far. Supports position in their clock positions at max melee, while DPS position at their clocks inside the hitbox. The first far bait shoots the 4 supports, and the second near bait shoots the 4 DPS. The supports now move in, while the DPS move out, before the third near bait shoots the supports, and finally the 4th far bait shoots the 4 DPS. When you adjust your position depends on the telegraph order, as if it was near near far far, you would have to swap after the first near cleaves so that DPS can bait the second, as well as after the first far cleave, but the logic is consistent regardless. Stock Break will target a party member with a series of 4 high magic damage shared stack AoEs. Zelenia will cast Blessed Barricade, becoming untargetable and summoning 4 Roseblood drop adds that begin filling her ether gauge. Allowing this gauge to reach 100 will result in a wipe. Shades will appear at west and east, with the west shade tethering a support and the east shade tethering a DPS. These shades will bear a massive sword on either their left or right side, indicating they will cleave in that direction. The tethered players can stand north or south of the shades to point this cleave out and spare the raid. Note that after baiting the cleave, baiting players need to sidestep to dodge out of it themselves. 3 player towers will also spawn at southwest and northeast, so the remaining 3 supports soak the west tower, while the remaining DPS soak the east tower. This loop will repeat until 4 sets of shades and 3 sets of towers have been cycled through, with the towers alternating corners. The towers deal reasonable damage, so healers will want to top the raid up in between sets. Once you are comfortable with the DPS check, I suggest holding buffs and burst until the boss is targetable again. After killing the adds and baiting the cleaves, Zelenia becomes targetable and casts Perfumed Quietus, dealing high magic raid damage. Roseblood Bloom is Zelenia's premier mechanic. During these mechanics, a small circle beneath Zelenia becomes very dangerous. Entering into this small circle inflicts a 15-second bleed that ticks for massive damage, and while it can be healed through, it will kill most players in 2 ticks, and siphons a lot of resources away from the healers. Avoid crossing through direct center. Roseblood Bloom will divide the arena into 8 slices, each with an inner and outer segment. Some of these slices will be red, detonating whenever Zelenia strikes them with certain AoEs. Alexandrian Thunder 2 will telegraph 3 cones that will rotate. Find the side with the safe spot spanning 4 slices, and position behind the cone going through the middle of it, and follow this cone as it rotates away, taking care not to enter into the red patches that are detonating as the Alexandrian Thunder strikes them. Alexandrian Thunder 3 will now target the entire raid with circle AoEs. This is just a simple spread, but like some of Zelenia's other attacks, will cause any red patches struck to detonate. It's fine to cross through the red while spreading, but be sure to end on dark ground that will not detonate before the spreads resolve. Roseblood's second bloom will again divide the arena with patches of red that detonate when struck. Zelenia will cast Thunder Slash, telegraphing a series of 6 conal AoEs, as well as a series of out and then in AoEs, or vice versa. After the first in-or-out is telegraphed, move to the side with one safe starting segment. At the end of the cast bar, move in or out to dodge the second part of the in-out, and use the 2 remaining segments to also dodge the conal AoEs. If you aren't confident, just focus on dodging the in-out and red patches. Eating one cleave is survivable, and the healers will be expecting it. After another Specter of the Lost, we go into Roseblood 3rd Bloom. 4 outside segments will be red, each with a gap between them, while 2 inside segments will also be red with a 1 segment gap between them. Zelenia will summon a Shade with Bud of Valor, and that Shade will cast Alexandrian Holy, marking the 4 outer segments with tower icons, indicating that a player must stand in them to avoid an explosion. At the same time, Zelenia will cast Emblazon, marking all DPS or all supports with roses above their heads. The 4 non-rose players will soak the outside tower tiles, going clockwise if the towers don't spawn between 2 waymarks of the same color. The 4 rose players will position such that one is between the 2 inner red wedges, while the remaining 3 roses take the inner wedges directly opposite and adjacent, giving us a 1-3 split configuration. Generally, players will take the segment closest to their color waymark area, but relative position strategies can also be used here if your group prefers. I've included a diagram showing one example of what a relative strategy would look like. After a delay, Emblazon will damage and inflict magic vulnerability up on the rose players and turn their tiles red, connecting them to any adjacent red tiles. If any 2 towers are connected via red segments, they will fail to resolve, detonate, and execute the rose players with magic vulnerability up. Assuming everyone drops their roses in the correct positions, the rose players move out of the glowing patches, while the remaining 4 players remain inside of theirs to soak the 4 towers, resolving the mechanic. After another Thorned Catharsis, Bud of Valor will again summon a Shade. This Shade will cast Shock, targeting 3 players of 1 role with the donut AoEs from the start of the fight. Zelenia will begin casting another Escelons Fall, while the Shade targets 1 player of each role with Alexandrian Banish 2 stack markers. The pulsing donut AoEs persist until the first cleave of Escelons Fall, so we have to approach this one a bit differently than the first. All supports stack on the north edge of the target ring, while all DPS stack on the south edge. Whichever role does not get the donuts will resolve the first and third witch hunts, while the donut role resolves the second and fourth. To spread for the baits, we fan out with ranged in the middle 2 spots and melees on the outside positions, with Light Party 1 players west and Light Party 2 players east. If someone is able, calling or writing the bait orders is very helpful here. The role that does not get donuts can spread and position for the first bait as soon as their stack resolves, about 70% through the Escelons Fall cast bar. This is immediately followed by another stock break, and if you've made it this far, the worst is over. Roseblood 4th Bloom will once again distribute red segments throughout the arena. There will be 2 adjacent slices without any red segments, and these slices will be the rose area. Emblazon will target 1 role with 4 roses and place 2 circle roses on the arena opposite the rose area. Rose players can immediately move to the rose area, each occupying 1 tile, with the melees inside and the ranged outside. The remaining 4 players will be targeted with spread circle AoEs. These players just need to spread opposite the roses. Pepperoni's on the pepperoni side, but it is critical that none of them clip the red tiles on the opposite half of the arena with their AoEs, as this will execute the roses. After the roses are placed and the spreads have resolved, the entire raid stacks behind Zelenia during her Encircling Thorns cast. After a delay, each DPS will be tethered to a support, and these tethers must be broken by running apart. Once they see the tether debuffs, supports will run west, while DPS run east to the arena's edge. One of the healers will be targeted with an Alexandrian Banish 3 stack. This hits very hard. To ensure that the entire raid shares the damage, simply have all players occupy the red segments at west and east. As long as the stack hits this red patch, it will be shared by all players in it, including the DPS on the opposite side of the arena. There is some misinformation going around that supports can't stand in the red, but as you can see in the footage, there is no penalty, so I suggest the entire raid develop the habit of standing in red after breaking the thorny vines. After another Thorned Catharsis, Bud of Valor once again summons Shades. this time one north and one south. Zelenia will cast her third and final Escelons Fall. We resolve this exactly like the first, in our clock positions, with supports taking the first and third, and DPS taking the second and fourth. The one difference here is that right before the first set of baits, one of the shades will cleave the east or west half of the arena. Likewise, after the fourth set of baits, the remaining clone will also cleave the east or west half of the arena. This is followed by another stock break. Roseblood Fifth Bloom will divide the arena into 2 opposite safe quadrants and 2 opposite red quadrants. Valorous Ascension will summon pairs of chakrams on the outside of the arena, while Thunderslash telegraphs a series of conal AoEs and an in-out combo. Start in or out in the quadrant that isn't in front of the first set of chakrams. At the end of the Thunderslash cast, move to the other safe quadrant, positioning in or out to dodge the second part of the Thunder AoE. React to the cast bar ending rather than the animation. If you're having trouble with being quick enough, sprint can be useful. After another Specter of the Lost, we enter Roseblood's Sixth Bloom. Each quadrant of the arena will have 1 red segment, with 2 inside and 2 outside opposites. Bud of Valor will summon a shade to cast Alexandrian Holy, converting the red tiles into 4 tower tiles. Emblazon will also mark 4 players of 1 role as roses, and Zelenia will cast Holy Hazard, telegraphing 2 sets of 2 120-degree cleaves. The intended solution for this mechanic is to use the roses to extend the towers that get hit by the second Holy Hazard cleaves, as the towers resolve during the second hit. The much easier way of resolving the mechanic is to just send everyone to their quadrants. Non-roses soak the towers, roses drop diagonally of the tower in their quadrant, and the raid just pops a few mitts and eats the Holy Hazards. From here, the very first Roseblood will repeat, followed by a Thorned Catharsis Raidwide, a pair of tank Tethers, and 3 back-to-back stock break stacks. If Zelenia still hasn't fallen, she will turn the entire arena red with Roseblood Withering, before wiping the raid with an Enrage cast of Rose Red. Thank you very much for watching my guide. I hope that you found something useful within, and I will see you guys in the next one.